Please welcome Josh and Benny Safdie.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. I'm a little sick, so I brought my blanket up here with me.
Do you want some tea?
I'm all right. Amazing, right?
So thanks so much for sharing these fabulous films with us. Can you talk to us a little bit about the process of how you make them?
Well, there's always usually there's a very strict line between a short film and a feature film, and we try to not go by that line.
It's an adjective.
Yeah, it's like it just happens to be shorter than other films, because usually you look at a short film and it always has a punchline, or it always has a very set structure, and these stories just they go from 3 minutes to 25. You know, it just is a matter of what the story dictates it.
It usually starts, I think, you know, I don't want to go too much into like idea of process, but to me the idea starts with confusion in a way, like why am I feeling this after something that had happened, or something that my mind is kind of altered in a way that, you know, forced this feeling upon it's a confusing feeling. So usually it starts with confusion and trying to figure that out. Why did I feel this way? Or, you know, or it's also like dissatisfaction, you know, like, you know, filmmakers are inherently, I think, a little depressing because, you know, we're dissatisfied with life, so we want to recreate it on screen. I mean, that's messed up. That's not the way life is supposed to be. You're not supposed to recreate. It's a very unnatural thing to do, and I think very immoral thing to do. So I think that's where it stems from, is dissatisfaction. I know for me with I ended up watching nearly all of them, and it's just kind of, that really kind of came out at me. It's just like, you know, seeing Benny's interaction with Faris, who you'll see in Daddy Longlegs, and, you know, just that you know, also like the way memory forms, like with the paper towel and we're going to the zoo. That was something that Benny and I had done when we were kids, but we were just distracting ourselves from like whatever chaos was around us at the time. So I don't know, I guess dissatisfaction, immorality, confusion, recreation. I love when anyone says to me that they saw a documentary and then they say in hushed tones, there's recreations, I get so excited. I love the idea of dramatic reenactments. I think they're...
Because it's inherently a documentary either way. That happened, even if you're recreating it.
That's true. Good point.
Exactly.
Do you often work with the same actors?
Sometimes. Sometimes.
And you know, how did you recruit them or
Well, it's just they're people that we know or that we see, like Mitchell in John's Gone, who's incredible.
That's the guy who tries to rob him.
Yeah, we were sitting at a diner and he came in with his friends, and he was just being a jokester with his friends. He had this big leather jacket on, and
it's like 7 sizes too.
Yeah, and we just looked at each other and we're like, this guy's incredible, and we just had to like run. I ran after him and like accosted him at the corner and tried to get his phone number and his email, and he was so excited, and he pointed out, he's like, oh, you want me, not my friends, right? Just to like stick it at him again.
But you know, like the Turkish Richard Gere at the end of Black Balloon, you know, we were shooting the first day. We had originally someone else for that role, but it wasn't even really a role. I mean, it was an idea. It was a small person, you know, and a small role, and we were shooting just some like getting acquainted with the balloon shots. You know, the first day very light.
I remember I came back and all of a sudden I was like, you had this
well,
guy
I was with
next
Sean.
to you.
I was standing
like,
there
where
with
did
Sean.
this guy come from?
Sean
like he
shot the
from
movies right here, and I was standing there with Sean, and he had the camera up like, you know, 9 feet. It was interesting. It was like Times Square. You know how they have the police, the like extendable elevators that survey the streets. He had that with the camera, and we were just kind of looking. And I said to Sean, I was like, oh my God, I'm in love with this man. And then it's just kind of, you get that feeling. that you get, similar to, a romantic feeling, with, like someone you see on the street, a girl or a guy, if that's the way you are. And, you just kind of say, if I don't, it's like this, I love YOLO. I think that that's an incredible modern creation. And you think about that and you're like, yeah, you do only live once. So you should just go and speak to this person because you're affected by them and I genuinely love that person. So we started talking to him. I told him he was beautiful. He thought I was an insane person. And, I convinced him to be in the movie. And then we did one take right then and there of him grabbing the balloon. And there was a major language barrier at first. So he says, today is my beautiful day. And it was like, it took my heart away. And then we went back and we wrote a bunch of stuff, that we were channeling, personal things, with, and we were having him play this role. But I really, he's a Turkish Richard Gere. And then that kid, the kid who plays his son, Mustafa, is somebody who I stopped on the street 4 years ago. And I just had a picture of him in my phone that I'd never delete. And it just, Eleanor, who played Jenny, she did a casting for that movie, and she was like, oh, Mustafa would be great as his son.
You have a real talent for working with kids. And how did you, even just the shot of them crossing the street, how did you manage to orchestrate that?
Well, it was difficult. We had people on hand, but a lot of we actually made it, Andy, who played we made it his responsibility. So that's why, because that added to the whole chaos of his acting, was he really had to safely stop traffic and have all these kids cross. So it was.
And you also had Rachel.
Yeah, and he on the phone yelling at him. So he was just like, we
try to make it as difficult as possible for ourselves and for the actors.
And that also helps with kids, is if you just surround them with stimulus, they're gonna react, and they can't help but be natural. So we do that with grown-ups also.
The goal is to be in the moment, and kids, animals, danger, stress, all these things kind of make you very present. And when you work, this next film we're doing is we're going to be working with some real actors. So they say. Well, I don't know what that means, but they're like people who you recognize, and they're professionals. They do it for a living. Not that some of these people were professional actors in some of the movies, and I don't know. It's just the professional actors that I respond to most are the ones that were discovered, waiting tables or walking down the street. Like you hear the story about De Niro in Mean Streets and how he was just such a live wire. He was dropping all of these real mafiosos' men's names in improvised dialogue, and then he had a hit out on his head for like 3 years. So like these are the type of people who we like to surround ourselves with, and and I like that. I like knowing this person can get you killed, or this. And kids do that, very much so. Kids keep you present. It's like, they're very good judges of character. They'll call bullshit immediately on something. And Sage and Frey, who were in Daddy Longlegs, that was hell working with them, but it was also beautiful and great. And working with 30 kids, Midtown.
Well, and there was like, logistically, it was kind of insane. Up like Josh and Sean are up like in a tower, and I'm on the speakerphone in my ear, and there's 30 kids all yelling, and all of them really just wanted pizza, and it's just chaos. And then we just started.
We were using MoMA actually as our housing, and they didn't know that. So there was literally just 30 kids every 10 minutes when the take was over, coming in and out of MoMA in the lobby. And security was just.
And also, every 35 minutes, 150 balloons would get released in the air, and just like clockwork.
We put a lot of rubber out there during that movie.
Did the kids get their pizza in the end?
They did, yes.
Oh, you're good guys.
Yeah, they did. We had all of it waiting, and that we used another public area as our holding.
That's what's great about New York. You have the streets are yours, so you can do whatever you want with them. So.
And is there improvising as you're making the films, or?
Definitely.
Yeah, we have scripts, but then when you get to the moment, you sort of realize that the actor's not going to say it naturally the way you wrote it, so you kind of throw it out the window and redo it right on the spot, and then rehearse it, and then finally you have.
We have key lines that we're very adamant about making sure that they go in, and all of the kind of transient dialogue in between that is up to them. I mean, we've been working on a script for 2 years now, and it's been very strange because it's really just it's literally just a
You know, all
tool. It's just a tool to get to where you need to be. It's almost like taking a taxi or a subway. Like you're only on it for a little bit and then whatever. It's
and I
just a
think
memory,
a lot of the time you can sort of fall in love with the script and the dialogue, and then you kind of it just dies because you're like, oh, I completed it, I did it, I wrote the script, and then you don't have any desire really to take the next step. Whereas if you look at it as it's just this tool, then you have to take the next step
literally
for it to come
with,
to life.
with Hollywood and that, or like the non-Hollywood that still is very much Hollywood, you need a script in order to get money, and there are a lot of I'm really starting to like the writing process, because we do all of all the dialogue that we have in all of these movies. It's all written at some point. We just a lot of times don't bring it to the table with the actors, but sometimes we do, and I don't know. I'm starting to really kind of like the idea of screenwriting.
But yeah, no, that with the turtle, the PSA thing we just did, that was we had to create this poacher, and we had to convince himself that he was this crazy animal poacher. It's this thing we just made, but literally, it was so hard to just. It was like
You couldn't give him a script.
No,
the script
you couldn't,
would only
because
give you
It was if you gave it to him, you would have gotten the worst performance. So literally, we had to just spend like 3.5 hours just going through every single thing. Like, what's that? What's that? What's that? What's that? And then eventually, it's the same thing as on the page.
Yeah, you
but
just kind of provide information and background and stimuli. Just like you just want to build foundations, which is why some of the rehearsals, like in John's Gone, the rehearsal period for that was Benny and Dakota going on a date and Flushing ice skating rink, and I showed up with the camera just to kind of establish that atmosphere, but there was no intentions of that ever being in the movie. It's really just to kind of ease people into situations. But when you have improvisation with little kids, like I remember very specifically a couple of scenes with Sage and Frey. Sage was like 9 and Frey was 7. You get a 7-year-old improvising. Sometimes it's incredible, and most of the time it's like, wow, that's a great thing that a 7-year-old is saying. So it's like you're seeing like a smart, like the highest intelligent thing a 7-year-old can come up with. And you never want to see, that to me is what I hate about like, when you can smell like improvisation.
anyway.
Is like, yeah, you just kind of all of a sudden you just see people almost bragging with their intelligence. Like, oh, I just came up with that line, huh?
see
That
that,
you love
you
that.
see that light bulb moment on the screen. That's so annoying. It's the whole point of improv is not to show off that you're doing it. It's to use it to make it disappear.
And how did the idea come about for the bus scene, for the the intervention?
It was
Social
like,
terrorism.
Yeah, it's
Is
terrorism.
what Ronnie calls it.
It felt like terrorism. We literally we
Yeah.
knew that once you entered the park, you could do whatever you wanted on the bus, and we had all the actors staged at various spots and texting, "Don't get on the bus" or "Get on the bus, we're ready," and the whole point was to literally stage an event that people thought was real, and then would go home and be like, "You have no idea, this psychopath screamed at a woman with a baby." And
Yeah, for us, it was almost like the movie wasn't the product that you even see on the screen. It was the dinner conversation that everyone had at the bus. Because we had a pretty, like, it was a, very good fusion of probably, I'd say 40% of the bus was placed actors. But I think the idea stems from, that moment. Like, I even heard it, I got very sensitive watching Black Balloon when it cut from the inside of the store to outside. You don't, maybe you do realize, but the sounds of a city are so harsh and so debilitating sometimes that you just kind of, if you don't stay on your toes, if you don't just kind of conquer it at all times, it'll eat you up, and it'll give you a migraine headache, and it'll be a terrible, you'll have a terrible day. The person you talk to, will feel your wrath, and that, I think, that guy was having a bad day, and what I like about Ronnie at the end, he's like
he
saying,
sides.
yeah,
It's
Ronnie's
because it's the hero mentality. It's like you kind of hate when everybody claps at the end, because like the poor guy was
you
just.
love it too, though.
You love it also, yeah, but it's at the same time you're kind of conflicted. Like Ronnie, like, listen, you don't just assault somebody, is what he says, and he's kind of right. But it's just sort of you see the people, both sides of that on a bus, and that's happened not in some way, shape, or form to almost everybody in New York.
Sure.
I do kind of love that moment of,
Well, what's amazing,
communal,
we
like,
had, yeah,
everyone's
that's,
solidarity on the bus.
well, we had a certain moment where when I said something, everybody was going to clap and scream and throw me off the bus, but it happened organically. Everybody else on the bus started ganging up on me who I didn't know, so I started getting even more angry at everybody, and I had this like crazy look in my eyes, and I was screaming, and just when everybody started screaming back door in the middle of the park, that's when I was like, uh-oh, this is going to go
and
bad.
that was like something that we had written down.
Yeah.
We really wanted people to scream backdoor.
Yeah.
Because there's an aggression. When someone has to scream backdoor on a bus in New York, someone's
such
not
a
doing their
specific
job
line, yeah.
or something's going wrong. And that, I just love
Yeah.
that moment when someone's vigilante. It's
Yeah.
like social
Backdoor!
vigilante.
Vigilante.
I love it. I love it.
It's like Death Wish.
Can we take some questions from the audience? Yes. Question, I'll just repeat the question.
Okay.
Does it seem like part of your absurdist career in film to be on the stage at the New York Jewish Film Festival?
You know, I think that, and I saw it in here, no, not at all. I think that one thing I would like to make, our next movie is very much about a real Jew, and I say that with, you know.
Loving hatred.
Yeah. You know, we're an ethnic people, and, you know, we're a minority, and no matter how hard we try to pretend like we're not, we still are. And, you know, there's you know, I still think, like, during the blackout, I felt like I was, you know, in a Jewish ghetto, you know, and the Nazis were patrolling. Like, I still have that fear. And this idea of fear and, you know, just being accepted by people. And it's like, you know, believe it or not, it's like a punk attitude to be Jewish.
Well,
And to be at the Jewish Film Festival, you know, sponsored by the Jewish Museum, that's awesome to me.
Well, no,
So it's not absurd. I mean, it is absurd in the sense that, like, who the hell are we? We're up here showing movies that, you know, I felt bad for one person. I was watching her, and she left. She was into it. She was really into the bad jokes that we tell. She was satiating our terrible sense of humor, but it was...
There was actually an interesting moment in Acquaintances of Only John where I was hanging out with him a lot, Ferris, and we were getting along, and one night it was like 4:30 in the morning, and all of the cab drivers came in. They were all Arabic, and they didn't know if I was Jewish. It was kind of just out there. I was always hanging out.
Muslims are our brothers.
Yeah, we were all getting along so well, but one guy said, "Are you Jewish?" And
Well, yeah, because we're Syrian Jews.
yeah, so he didn't know, and it never came up because it wasn't important. But now it was all of a sudden important, and then it got really awkward and strange. And I said yes, and then the next day I came back and nobody was there, because Ferris got so angry at his friends for even bringing it up and just like trying to make it weird that he's like stopped talking to them for like 4 months. And it was a really powerful moment, but it just is there. I don't know.
I mean, really, what does it mean? It's just, you know, part of a tribe, goes back pretty, you know, I mean, it's just a label. And what's interesting about Judaism is it's more of a culture than it is a religion, which,
Yes.
you know, it's just pushed around like little rats all around the world, like, go under this rock. Okay, you can't be under that rock anymore. Go under this rock. And then we took over Hollywood, and, you know.
Here we are at Lincoln Center.
Exactly, exactly. So thank you to the Sammy Glicks and the Duddy Kravitzes for making it possible for 2 Yids to be on stage. 3 Yids. 2 Yids, yeah.
Can you tell us a little more about your next project? The one you're working on? Or is it secret?
You know
for
what's
now?
crazy is I would get an email from somebody saying like, what's going, and I bump into people I know they're gonna ask, you know, like, what's happening with the project? It's like, it's terror. It's like a funhouse mirror. It's been a really, really long time, but I think we're finally going to make it. Most likely May or June, and hopefully May, but it's probably going to be June, because it's about kind of about a gemstone. It's about the Diamond District in a way. It's about a group of misfit families
and a dying breed of old Jewish man who like cheats, steals, and the beauty of that. So.
It's called Uncut Gems, but we were kind of realizing now it's about like a very mythical black opal that comes. It's very moody, and it comes into the world of the district via like a $700,000 tuna, and that's smuggled in to avoid the taxes. So there's it's about hustling. It's about figuring out any possible way to stay on your toes and be present. It's about, we were talking about it before, it's about, like Zen Jude. What did you call it? There's like a cool term for it.
The Jew in the Lotus?
No, but
Zen Judaism. I think.
Zen Judaism. Incredible. Like the mandala and the Star of David coming together and, finding a path through the streets of New York. But it's also very much about basketball and how that's a very present sport and how it's constant. It's like jazz is going back and forth, and you have.
You can be
That's
down
why I say
28
June,
points and still
because
win.
June is hopefully the New York Knicks go to the championship. They win the championship, so then we're forced to shoot in June because that's when our athlete can be in it. Who is probably the only black Jew in the NBA. There you go.
Sounds like a film too. I love the pigeon in the air conditioner. Is there a backstory to that?
Yes, a long time ago, we were just growing up, and they just like nest underneath the air conditioners, and it sounds like it's coming from within it. So, just take that and stretch it to the farthest possible point, and it's living inside. As a kid, I always thought they were in there, and it was really annoying because you couldn't sleep, and you just hear this every morning, and it was just. It's a kind of it's just I always thought that that's the case. Now I know they live underneath it, but imagine if they were.
Eleanor saw pigeons in an air conditioning.
Really?
Quite recently, there was like feathers flying through.
Well, they fly. They always try. They get their way. They get in there. So. And then
I
was
like more.
Nice, like okay, instead of kicking it out or turning it on, you try and. Feed
I
it.
like more than the pigeon in the air conditioner. I like the way you tell the story to Faris. And I like the calm in between your story and Faris's story.
The digestion period.
Oh, it's incredible because we've all hung out with somebody, and there's been that like calm in between.
Where you
stories
trying to come up with what else
or
to
just
say,
like, or you feel someone feels the need to fill that void when sometimes you don't have to, and it's nice that, I just love that moment. Yeah.
Just also seems like such an act of kindness to actually feed the bird. It's one of the most shocking moments I think I've seen on film. When
That's Benny. You can say that's John, but that's Benny.
That's actually probably the closest. And then what was really interesting was to see that cut from that to John's gone. It was just like, what happened to the guy?
Yeah.
It's like the city just chewed him up. But
Got his ass kicked. Yeah.
I think we actually have to wrap up for now, but you'll be with us for Daddy Longlegs.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Well,
much.
Thank you so much.
Oh, and what's really beautiful about Daddy Longlegs is like you'll see there'll be like a strong moment, a meta moment where I think they sit down, two of the boys sit down in one of these chairs and they look back up there. And Ronnie, who was actually going to try to make it tonight, he wasn't a dad yet, and now it's crazy because now his daughter Faye's 3.5, or just she's 3. It's just crazy to think, how time moves if you don't pay attention, So the movie will play, and, we shot in this theater. And this is the first legit screening we're having of it in this theater.
Oh, wait, no,
because
there they are. They're all back there. Hey.
Sage and Frey and Lee and Leah, yeah. A lot of people here who worked on that movie. Brett Jukowitz, you here? There's Brett and Eleanor, I think I see you. Dakota's here. Sean's down here. Anybody else here who worked? Sammy here? Sammy's not here yet. Anybody else work on the movie that I don't know that you're here?
Either way, we'll all be
some
here.
Timid
Hopefully.
people. Some timid people. You want to encourage people to be more bombastic.
Stand up.
Yeah. Thank you very much,
Excellent.
and thank
Thank
you
you.
to Film Society.
Thank you so much for all of it.